Who was the richest man in the entire Star Wars known galaxy? I believe we can all agree that that would be the Supreme Chancellor turned Emperor, Sheev Palpatine. Greetings again, Acolytes of the Force, and welcome back to the archives. One thing that we need to note about the Rule of Two era of Sith is that they would often recruit from the politically and financially powerful when seeking out an apprentice. This was certainly the case for Darth Plagueis, whose alter ego Higo Damask was a premier businessman who only interacted with the upper echelons of society and the galaxy itself. That would be where we would meet the young Palpatine on Naboo, a rebellious and misunderstood boy born of the noble house of Palpatine. From his very childhood, Sheev understood what it meant to be powerful in society, and Sheev would quickly learn from his father that money could eliminate problems. So as he got older and more in tune with the high galactic society and began making his own connections, what did Palpatine do with his vast wealth and the vast wealth of his family? Not to mention the trillions of dollars he accrued after he became the Emperor. Well, today, we will be explaining and discussing how Palpatine spent his fat stacks. Palpatine's net worth is nearly impossible to calculate, but there are many purchases that he has made throughout his entire life within both canon and legends that we need to explore. If we were to find and list everything of value that Palpatine did or possessed, then this video may last the entirety of the Rule of Two. So for this video, we are going to hit his major purchases and try to calculate the cost of some of his most expensive excursions to get a taste of how wealthy the Dark Lord really was. First though, how did Palpatine get his money? In the beginning, it would be the treasury of his noble house. After brutally murdering his entire family with the Force and then making them vanish without a trace, Sheev would be the sole inheritor of the Palpatine fortune. Of course, as one of the richest noble houses of Naboo at the time, this would have likely included millions, if not billions of credits, with Naboo being one of the more wealthy worlds. Again, this was his beginning. But once the Clone Wars broke out, and Palpatine would be elected to the position of Supreme Chancellor, although we know he attempted to remain humble in the public, we do have evidence of embezzlement. In Season 6 of the Clone Wars, it is explored how Palpatine smuggled tiny amounts of money out of the intergalactic banking clan, doing so in order to manipulate the Republic into seizing control of the banks and giving all of that control directly to the office of the Chancellor. This would of course give Palpatine access to all of the credits he needed to begin construction of the Empire and the Death Star. But once he became Emperor, it almost goes without saying that he would essentially have control over all the money in the galaxy, giving him a bottomless pool of wealth to draw upon. The Emperor, as an absolute dictator, no longer needed to pay for anything out of pocket, but could just issue it be done with an imperial decree. So, what exactly did Palpatine do with his massive wealth? Starting large, we would talk about Palpatine's many houses. He would of course begin with his family's mansion on Naboo. It was out of the way and quite a few miles outside of Theed. In fact, Higo Damask would be kidnapped and taken there by Kasinga Palpatine, who would then attempt to bribe him and then threaten him to leave his family and his son alone. During his first few years as a small-time politician, Palpatine would take control over his family's home and operate outside of it until he gained enough prestige on Coruscant to officially move to the capital world. It is never revealed exactly what Palpatine did with his family's home, though we do know of a retreat that Palpatine did have on Naboo that he used during the reign of the Empire. It isn't stated though whether or not this is the same mansion, but it likely would not be. The retreat that we know of was a multi-story structure styled with domed roofs like many Naboo buildings. Guard towers surrounded the facility and security patrols kept watch outside. The structure was made out of the finest stone available in the entire galaxy, not just Naboo. And a wide stone concourse lined the backside of the building, with a balcony overlooking the lake. The retreat's front was outfitted with a veranda and a road wide enough to accommodate a patrol of AT-ATs. Of course, once Palpatine moved to Coruscant during his time as a politician, his new residence would be the penthouse of 500 Republica, an apartment complex that Obi-Wan noted as being the most exclusive in all of Coruscant. One had to be of an extremely high social status to even visit the Republica. Not to mention there were entire roads that were blocked off to keep those lesser out. We actually got a look at the Republica penthouse in The Phantom Menace, where the walls are all draped in a deep red color, one that is reminiscent of the Emperor's future royal guard. It would also be within this very apartment, on the couch that Queen Amidala sat upon, that Sidious would eventually slay his master in his sleep. torturing him with force lightning and then choking him to death. During the latter days of the Clone Wars, Palpatine almost got himself caught when he got a little sloppy, and the Jedi were able to trace Sidious's movements through an underground tunnel leading right to 500 Republica. But this would not be his permanent residence on Coruscant. After proclaiming himself Emperor, Sidious would move out of his penthouse and into the Jedi Temple, turning it into the Imperial Palace. We have a video coming soon which will detail all of the changes that Palpatine made to the temple in order to morph it into his new home, so be sure to be on the lookout for that. But it was within this palace that Sidious gloated over the Fallen Order and would draw upon the natural dark side energies from the Sith shrine buried beneath the floors of the temple. He would carry out secret excavations of the shrine and performed many rituals that he kept secret from his apprentice Vader. But speaking of secret, let's talk about the Emperor's citadel on Biss. Palpatine had an entire city built in luxury on the tropical world of Biss. We released a video talking all about the horrors that truly lied on this beautiful world and the depraved things that Palpatine secretly did there. Palpatine advertised this paradise as a refuge for all those in the Empire that lost their homes on their original worlds, including those of Alderaan. Biss was a place for the people to live, lost in pleasures of the world in order to keep them distracted. Palpatine was draining their life essence out of them in secret in order to fuel his many dark side experiments, keeping them happy and distracted. It would also be in this citadel where he and Vader would kill and torture Force-sensitive children in order to turn them to Inquisitors. Beyond Biss, there were several fortress worlds that Palpatine owned, such as his observatory on Pilio, which was infiltrated by Luke Skywalker following the Battle of Endor. But now that we've discussed his homes, what's another indicator of great wealth in Star Wars? Well, Palpatine's massive personal fleet and the many ships that he owned. Palpatine has bought several in his lifetime. With ships, it's much easier to calculate the actual cost in the tangible figures. During the Age of the Republic, Palpatine rode around on Coruscant in the luxury 3000 space yacht, which was reserved for high-class individuals as it was priced around 250,000 credits, making it often associated with diplomatic meetings and travel. Palpatine's yacht was fitted with a small jet stream meditation pool in the interior, as well as was surrounded with several conform couches. The main deck offered a dining area, a large private suite, and a 5-visitor cabin. One of the other ships Palpatine privately had designed for himself was a transport known as the Imperialis. We aren't entirely sure of the price of this one, as it was a custom job done by Wraith Sinair, who owned Republic Sinair Systems, a shipbuilding company that was specifically created to build ships exclusively for Palpatine. An entire company just for him. The Imperialis was fast, maneuverable, and capable of outrunning Imperial Star Destroyers. The massive yacht was equipped with advanced defensive systems in its wings that were capable of blasting gravity mines, but within the ship held a great vault that was filled top to bottom with treasures. It would be in this ship that Palpatine would deliver the mask of Lord Mammon to Darth Vader. And apparently, Palpatine didn't just own one Imperialis, but several, all of which were kept docked in the hangar of his palace. Along with these ships, Sinair also constructed the ship known as the Scimitar. The Scimitar was a Sith ship commissioned by Palpatine to give to his apprentice Darth Maul. The Scimitar was specifically modeled after the Sith transport ships of the Old Republic era, heavily similar to the ship that Darth Bane would often travel in. The biggest selling point of the Scimitar was its cloaking device. A bit of a prototype at the time, the cloaking device used a crystal called the Stygium crystal, which of course couldn't be bought on the regular market. The Empire would actually enforce laws controlling the trade of these crystals for this purpose. The Scimitar in its entirety is said to be valued at 55 million credits. This is likely because of the cloaking device alone, which is said to cost millions of credits without an exact price point. Another one of Palpatine's ships that featured advanced cloaking systems was his personal Imperial shuttle. He flew in a heavily modified Lambda-class T-4A shuttle, which was at base rate valued at around 500,000 credits. Again though, with Palpatine's personal and confidential modifications, and the cloaking device, which is said to be able to bypass any and all known scanning systems, it's likely that the shuttle was worth millions more than even the Scimitar was. Its weapons and flight systems were advanced as well, to the point where it didn't even fly like a standard shuttle, all in an effort to protect his royal majesty. In fact, no pilots were allowed to fly Palpatine's shuttle except for his Red Royal Guards, who were all fanatically loyal to the Emperor and specially trained to fight in this shuttle. But now, let's move on to trinkets and items. There are truly too many to count in Palpatine's possession, but among some of his most expensive effects would of course be his vast array of Sith artifacts. Palpatine would collect artifacts with various collectors and black market traders just as a hobby. Money was never an object to him, and all he cared about was securing those items for his massive personal collection. We've talked at length before about Palpatine's vault and all the artifacts that he had contained within, and it's possible that Palpatine could have spent billions of dollars on rare Sith artifacts on the black market alone. By the time of the Clone Wars, we know that lightsabers were extremely expensive and could be sold for around 30,000 credits. Because of the enforcement Jedi placed on the trade of lightsabers or any Jedi or Sith artifacts, most of that price came from the seller's issues trying to skirt under the watchful eye of the Jedi Order. This means that each and every item Palpatine would buy on the black market would easily start at 10,000 credits as a baseline. But when he wasn't indulging in Sith curiosity, he was collecting items as gifts for his adoring senators. As an example, Senator Tickus of Mon Calamari gave him 3 large pearls from the seas of his homeworld, with the pearls held in a cup like ends of polished fossilized trumpet weed. Other senators, like Senator Bascol of Malastare, gifted Palpatine ornate ceremonial grand wind drums constructed from an ancient spiritual era. The Triffin senator Elen Lee gave Palpatine a near prehistoric stone carving from one of her species. Palpatine, of course, likely didn't care for any of these expensive items since he held no value or power to him, but he did display them in his apartment in 500 Republica for nothing else but status. Speaking that of which is on display though, Palpatine of course owned a collection of Brosnium statues. The statues depicting the 4 sages, politicians that lived during the beginning days of the Republic, and all of them who had publicly sworn to the Sith religion. Many of them even imposed dark side doctrines in the laws that they were passing. Not only did Palpatine have large Brosnium statues of the sages in his office, but he also carried with him 4 smaller statues whenever he traveled. One of the more expensive pieces Palpatine carried with him was his own lightsaber, built specifically out of the precious metals to insult Jedi. Sidious's 2 lightsabers were made completely of the metal known as Frick, a lightsaber-resistant metal that was only found on Gromus and Tatooine. This rendered his sabers nearly indestructible. And as a reference point to how durable Frick was, a crate of it was able to survive the destruction of Alderaan. The emitters were made of Arodium, a metal rarer than gold which was rumored to only be attained through alchemical processes found in the forges of Ossus, and metal that had to undergo a certain ritual. And the finish of both the sabers were of Electrum, which interestingly enough was a feature shared of Mace Windu's lightsaber. In the Jedi Order, Electrum was provided to masters upon attaining the rank as a congratulations for purely cosmetic reasons. It seems that Sidious decided also to mock Mace Windu and the entire Council of Masters by also making his lightsaber with an Electrum finish. Beyond the physical items that Palpatine was able to buy with all of his cash, we can also look to his other financial exploits and get an idea of his wealth here. We shouldn't forget that he was able to fund his own political campaign, and that he kept the entire Trade Federation financially afloat during the blockade of Naboo. And something that people rarely talk about, Palpatine personally funded the Kaminoans for the creation of the Clone Army 10 years prior to the war, completely out of his pocket. He had secret laboratories and outposts set up on countless worlds, such as one we see on Mustafar during the Clone Wars, and he constantly was bribing many influential figures in the Senate. And do we even need to calculate how many expensive bounty hunters Palpatine paid for over his long life? The wealth of this Sith Lord likely outclasses just about any in history besides those of Marka Ragnos, the Emperor of the Golden Age Sith. But even still, we believe Palpatine had more. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of our detailed video on Palpatine's luxurious lifestyle? Did you ever wonder what the Emperor did with all of his vast wealth? And also, which of these do you wish you had in your own possession? What did you think of this video? And what other sort of out there ideas would you like to see us explore and research in the Star Wars galaxy? Thank you so much for your constant support, my friends, and may the Force be with you.